All right, welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025, the 337th day of the year with 28 to go. 22 days away from Christmas and its International Day of Persons with Disabilities, established back in 1992 by the United Nations as a day to raise awareness and promote and honor the nearly 1.5 billion people in the world that live with significant disabilities. If that's not you, be thankful for your health. And on the food calendar, you may still have some of this left over from Thanksgiving. It's Green Bean Casserole Day. I don't know that many people that are getting excited about Green Bean Casserole Day, and if you do have some left over, you should probably not eat it. On the White House calendar, President Trump is participating in photos with the White House internship program today and is scheduled to make an official announcement this afternoon concerning automotive fuel efficiency standards and rules. Not quite as busy of a day at the White House today as yesterday, but you never know. This following yesterday's announcement of the Trump education accounts and the $6.2 billion gift from the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation that I told you about yesterday. Michael and Susan Dell spoke at the event yesterday along with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The president also held a cabinet meeting where he and his team addressed questions from the press corps. Let's start with a question about Minnesota Governor and former Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz and the Somali fraud scandal. The president's comments are getting a lot of attention, and then we'll get into the Tennessee election and a bunch of other stuff.
I think that Walz is a grossly incompetent man. There's something wrong with him, okay? There's something wrong with him. And when you look at what he's done with Somalia, which is barely a country, you know, they have no anything. They just run around killing each other. There's no structure. And when I see somebody like Ilhan Omar, who I don't know at all, but I always watch her for years. I've watched her complain about our Constitution, how she's being treated badly. Our Constitution, the United States of America, is a bad place. Hates everybody, hates Jewish people, hates everybody. And I think she's an incompetent person. She's a real terrible person. But when I watch what is happening in Minnesota, the land of 1,000 lakes or however many lakes they have, they got a lot of lakes, but this beautiful place, and I see these people ripping it off, and now I'm understanding, and you're going to look at that, Scott, I hear they ripped off Somalians, ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks. And we don't want them in our country. I can say that about other countries, too. I can say it about other countries, too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other. And we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
Obviously, the president's typical unconventional style and comments have ignited another media firestorm. First up, Carl Higbie on immigration.
This is not an emotional issue. This is killing our country. It's killing our finances, and it's killing our culture. Look, you want to come here legally, you want to ride eagles, love the flag, speak English, pay taxes, and not take benefits? Dude, come on in and be my friend. But that is the only way we should accept people here anymore. This country is about saving our culture, okay? If I wanted to experience Somali cuisine, I would go to Africa. If I wanted to try Sharia law, I'd go to the Middle East. If I cared about Diwali or the Asian New Year or communism or globalism, whatever else, I'd go to the countries that do that. And if I wanted to press 2 for English, I'd go to Mexico, but not here. If I wanted to learn about other cultures, I'll just get myself an atlas. But in my own country, I want to do American things. I want to launch fireworks on the 4th of July. I want to celebrate Christopher Columbus, not tear down his statues. And I want to drive my diesel pickup truck rolling coal down whatever highway I please. I don't want my congressman beholden to any foreign country or taking a dime from any of their interest groups. I want to say Merry Christmas. I want the 10 Commandments and the wall at my kid's school. I want to eat bacon wherever I want. I want teachers to bring everyone up to the highest standard, not settle down at the lowest common denominator. I want the first day of hunting season to be a school holiday. I want the American culture to be the only thing people embrace here. And the only way to do that is to get rid of people who broke our laws to get here that don't respect our culture in the first place, many of who are trying to make this country exactly like the dumps they fled from.
Former Navy SEAL and combat war veteran Carl Higbie. The Minnesota fraud scandal was also the topic of discussion on National Report with Sean Kreisman.
Texas Congressman Jody Arrington. He is the chairman of the House Budget Committee, member of the House Ways and Means Committee. Mr. Chairman, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning, Sean. Good to be with you.
You too. Tell me about this scandal. I mean, it really is shocking, to say the least, and so many whistleblowers coming forward. This began, I believe, with the Manhattan Institute looking into this. $1 billion stolen. Can you expand on that? What happened under Governor Tim Walz's watch?
Well, it's what didn't happen, right? You're either coaching it or allowing it to happen, to use an old high school football saying, and Tim Walz allowed it to happen. He got warnings from his own employees, hundreds of employees, whistleblowers that he did not heed and turned the other way. Some accuse him of not heeding it as a result of or because of politics and not wanting to disenfranchise an important voting bloc in the Somali community. But regardless, you had hundreds of millions of dollars stolen from the hard-earned taxpayer money that would have gone to, as you mentioned, hungry kids, elderly people who need a home, and autistic kids. This is a disgusting scope and scale of fraud that one attorney said, one prosecutor said, who had prosecuted fraud cases his whole career, the scope and scale of this is breathtaking. But this is the kind of stuff that we put anti-fraud measures in place government-wide during the Big Beautiful Bill to stop the fraud, the waste, and the abuse of tax dollars. Over $1 trillion in savings that Democrats fought us tooth and nail every step of the way and continue to fight us.
Yeah, and going back to the study, but the reporting by the Manhattan Institute finding $1 billion was taken from that fund that we had already talked about, and then it was somehow funneled now to Al-Shabaab, allegedly. Taxpayer-funded money going into potentially a terrorist organization. That's your headline if you're watching at home. So much so, this is validated so much so that now the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, wants to look into this. What does that mean to you when you hear that?
Well, it's, again, disgusting to think of people stealing resources for the most vulnerable Americans. I don't think taxpayers begrudge a safety net for vulnerable people, elderly, poor, kids with autism. But the fact that this governor knowingly looked the other way while hundreds of millions of dollars were siphoned away from these programs, again, is disgusting. I think it's more concerning if those monies made their way to support and fund terrorism and terrorists. But let's kind of tie this into what's going on right now. Okay. Democrats are saying that Republicans need to extend another fraud-ridden COVID-era program in the enhanced premium tax credits. This is another program that had 6 million plus ineligible people siphoning taxpayer funds away from those who it was intended for. And Democrats are making this the point of contention. They did during the shutdown, and they continue to on affordability with respect to health care.
Texas Congressman Jody Arrington, chair of the House Budget Committee on National Report. And let's not forget, health care is one of the real issues still on the table. Let's listen to more Q&A from the White House cabinet meeting, which will lead us into other segments.
When you talk about affordability, is going forward, are the American people, do you believe, getting impatient with the reforms that you're making? They've talked about it's about.
I think they're getting fake news from guys like you. Look, affordability is a hoax that was started by Democrats who caused the problem of pricing, and they didn't end it. When they lost in a landslide. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote. We won everything. You take a look at districts. It was 2,750 to 525. Because that was an affordability problem. We brought it down. Look at energy. Look at the gasoline price. It's like the simplest, and it's the biggest. Because if energy comes down, everything comes down. That's the way it works. We're going to be at 250. You said 199 in some places of the country, right? You said it. I didn't say it. And they won't check you. They'll check me. So, I'd like to use your number. 199 a gallon. Unthinkable if you go back a year and a half ago. It's unthinkable. So now we're bringing the prices down, way down. Beef is coming down now. We've done certain magic and beef is coming down. But we inherited horrible prices. We inherited really the worst inflation in history. We inherited that. When I came in, that's what he had. And we fixed inflation. And we fixed almost everything, if you want to know the truth, including 8 wars. We got 1 to go, but including 8 wars. But when they always say, I watched today where they have a race going on right now in Tennessee, and this woman goes, affordability. They're the ones that caused the problem. The prices were way high. We're bringing the prices down. But they're like scam artists. They're I call them con men and women. They come out, they say affordability, like, I see price. We're going to get prices down still further. But we brought them down from the prices they cost. The reason that they had the highest inflation in the history of our country is because they had the highest prices. But we brought them down, and now we have normal inflation.
Mr. President, thank you so much for taking questions with your assembled cabinet. I wanted to clarify something that you had said on Sunday regarding the boat strikes near Venezuela. You had said that you didn't know if the second strike on that one boat had happened, but you wouldn't have wanted it. Now that your administration has acknowledged that it happened, do you support that second strike? And Mr. Secretary, I wanted to clarify something you had said in an interview back in September, I believe on Fox News. You said that you had watched that strike live on television. In real time, did you know that there were survivors after the initial strike?
Well, look, all I know is this. Every boat that you see get blown up, we save 25,000 on average lives, 25,000 lives. They've been sending enough of this horrible fentanyl and other things like cocaine and other things, but fentanyl right now is the leader of the pack, to kill our entire nation. Because a little speck on the head of a pin can kill somebody. It's very dangerous stuff. I know so many people where their sons were drug addicts. They had one little sample, and they died. They died. They couldn't believe it. As far as the attack is concerned, I still haven't gotten a lot of information because I rely on Pete. But to me, it was an attack. It wasn't 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes. Somebody asked me a question about the second strike. I didn't know about the second strike. I didn't know anything about people. I wasn't involved in it. I knew they took out a boat. But I would say this, they had a strike. I hear the gentleman that was in charge of that is extraordinary. He's an extraordinary person. I'll let Pete speak about him. But Pete was satisfied. Pete didn't know about second attack having to do with 2 people. I guess Pete would have to speak to it. I can say this. I want those boats taken out. And if we have to, we'll attack on land also, just like we attack on sea.
President Trump reiterating that he will attack on land like we did on sea if need be. And as I said yesterday,
and just like that, killing drug smuggling terrorists is now a scandal in this country. But according to Democrats in Washington, they aren't drug smuggling terrorists. These are shipwreck survivors. According to Congressman Ted Lieu, these poor people just lived through a terrible, tragic shipwreck.
Now I'd like to talk about war crimes. Last week, Secretary Hegseth lied and denied media reports that the U.S. military ordered a second strike on defenseless shipwreck survivors.
Something tells us that old Ted hasn't spent a lot of time on the water. But according to him, these are shipwreck survivors. Look at the video, okay? Like these poor drug smuggling terrorists ran aground during a storm on a shoal and then their boat sank. Like these poor drug smuggling terrorists hit an iceberg and then poor Rose and Jack, the drug smuggling terrorists, were just waiting to be rescued on a big floating, not door, but a big floating drug crate. What a sad ending to that cinematic love story. The drug boat was even named Titanic. So sad, so tragic. But no one ever mentions, certainly not members of Congress like Ted Lieu, is how many Americans died of drug overdoses when Joe Biden was president. A record amount for a 4-year period, actually. According to the National Institutes of Health in 2021, Joe Biden's first full year in office, 106,000 and change died, Americans, of drug overdoses. In 2022, the number was 107,000 Americans dead. In 2023, 105,000 Americans died of drug overdoses. And in his final year of office, he was running for president again, so they started to get a little bit more control of the problem. Over 80,000 people died of drug overdoses because of the drugs that those same drug smuggling terrorists like Jack and Rose were bringing into the United States every day. All of those Americans died. But Democrats tonight are on their side, while Donald Trump is on your side. He's on America's side. And he's on the side of the more than 400,000 Americans that died of drug overdoses under Joe Biden. That's the most in history in a 4-year period. More Americans died of drug overdoses in the 4 years that Joe Biden was president than they did during the 4 years of World War II. Think about that. The world is a better place with fewer drug smuggling terrorists in it. But Democrats are still on their side. Wouldn't you know it?
That is Rob Finnerty, host of Finnerty at 8 o'clock Eastern, right after Rob Schmitt tonight, which featured an interview with a Republican senator who agrees with Democrats on the boat strikes. I am purposely pausing so you can guess who it is.
Senator Rand Paul joins us tonight. He intends to join Democrats if the White House moves any further on this with Venezuela and strikes inside the nation, the communist nation of Venezuela. He's with us tonight. Senator, good to see you again. You're joining with some some interesting people that are not very favorable to the president, and obviously people that are very, I think, hypocritical when it comes to these kinds of policies. Tell us why.
You know, I look at it as joining with the Constitution. The Constitution's pretty clear that war only occurs when Congress votes on it. We also have very clear rules in our country that say that when someone is out of combat or has been bombed into submission, if they're clinging from the wreckage of a boat, if they are shipwrecked, if they're hanging from a parachute and they're helpless, that they are no longer in combat and are not eligible to be killed. So there are some real questions here. If a first strike was ordered, there is a question whether those people were in combat, whether they were armed or what they were doing that made them combatants. But there's an even more in question, someone who is shipwrecked, someone who's clinging to wreckage, whether they can be killed. It appears to me that people who have previously been very supportive of the bombing, such as Lindsey Graham, the Wall Street Journal, and others, are now saying that clearly we're not allowed to bomb people who are shipwrecked. So I think the proof is in the details, and we should see the videos, and we should hear from them. And I actually don't like sort of pinning the blame on the military. They have a tough job as it is.
I think if there is blame to go around here, if someone bombed someone who was shipwrecked, that should go to the person who created the policy, not necessarily the soldier who's trying to do his job.
Yeah, well, we'll see where all of this goes with the shipwreck. I want to talk more broadly about Venezuela in general. The president and Maduro spoke over the phone last week. Miami Herald got a lot of the information to that, saying that Trump told Maduro, you can save yourself and those closest to you, but you must leave the country now. Reuters reporting that Maduro has suggested that he would get full amnesty and removal of sanctions if he were to leave. Trump didn't like that. You're out against this war fully. I think the broader GOP is more with the president on this. Let me just ask you this, though. If he can force Maduro to leave and do it without actually striking inside Venezuela, I feel like that would be considered a net gain. If we're actually trying to get rid of the Chinese influence in Latin America, if we're actually trying to move communism, off of being so close to our shores, why would that be necessarily a bad thing? It's pretty clear the president doesn't want to start a war, and he's trying to use every lever he can to get this guy out without doing that. Would that be such a bad thing?
If we're looking at degrees of evil, there's a lot of evil in the world. Yeah. Should we use that kind of force to get rid of President Xi from China? Should we use that kind of force to get rid of a half a dozen tin-pot dictators around the world? There's a lot of authoritarianism. There's a lot of socialism that I object to. I wrote a book called The Case Against Socialism, describing how awful the socialism is in Venezuela. But that doesn't mean that regime change always works or is a good idea. The president, one of the reasons I've always supported President Trump is that he was one who was opposed to the regime change in Iraq. He was one that was also opposed to the regime change in Libya. Right. And those led to disasters and decades of war and trillions of U.S. dollars. So I'm not for war. And if you have to have war, it should be done in a constitutional fashion. It should go to Congress, and Congress should declare the war. And I understand that. Why do you think that changed with him, though? I mean, and I got 20 seconds because I want to get to healthcare with you. But why do you think he suddenly is pushing? He's obviously trying to push Maduro out. Marco Rubio. I think Marco Rubio's always wanted to have regime change in Venezuela, and I think he's giving him bad advice. Giving him bad advice. Okay. Interesting summation of that, and I don't disagree that might be what's happening, because something clearly has changed. Somebody that was never a pro-war guy, and then suddenly this is interesting. I don't necessarily disagree with him, because I see the evil of that of what Maduro has done too.
Kentucky Senator Rand Paul there on Rob Schmitt tonight. So there was a lot to unpack in that. And aside from his overall stance, Senator Paul does make some valid points that you really can't disagree with. But it's interesting that he thinks Secretary of State Marco Rubio is giving the president bad advice. This is Senate Leader John Thune on the boat strikes and Venezuela.
I think the president is acting under his authority as commander-in-chief in a way that's consistent with what past administrations have done. And clearly, a war has been waged by these drug cartels against the United States, and it has come at a great cost to American citizens.
And this is Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
If Trump were to order an attack on land, that would be an act of war, and Congress would invoke the War Powers Act. It's Congress's prerogative to go to war, and I hope Republicans will defend that role.
All right, so the other big news, yes, there was an important special election in Tennessee yesterday.
Our victory was powered by supporters of President Trump turning out to vote. The president built the largest, most diverse coalition to ever elect a Republican, and we leaned in on that. Politicians who run from the president or abandon the common sense policies that the American people gave us a resounding mandate on do so at their own peril. No matter what the D.C. insiders or liberal media say, this is President Trump's party. I'm proud to be a part of it and can't wait to get to work.
That's Republican Matt Epps, the next congressman for the state's 7th district. It is a significant victory, but the race, frankly, was closer than it should have been against another far-left radical Democrat, Aftyn Behn. Back to Rob Schmitt.
Aftyn Behn chose not to be grateful for the privilege of her life. She resented it, fixated on perceived injustices, seeking out anything she could find, obsessed with finding inequity in our society, ready to burn the whole system down for change, unable to understand that this flawed system she hates so much is actually the best around, and her ideas would have us eating each other in just a short amount of time. So she seeks the socialist utopia, as so many before her have done, too ignorant to understand that what we have is very vulnerable. Seeking power in this election, her campaign is a total ripoff of Zoran Mamdani's in New York, obsessed completely with affordability.
Guys, the reason they're coming after me so hard is because they don't have a plan to address what the rising cost of healthcare, the rising cost of groceries, and that's why they're coming after me. And you know what? Such is life.
Such is life. As Trump said today, Democrats right now are just screaming affordability. It's the only thing they have to talk about. They have no viable plan to solve that issue, totally ignorant to the fact that raising taxes and funding more wasteful government programs to hand out more of your money is exactly why this country has an affordability problem to begin with. Democrats right now are campaigning on fixing a problem that they themselves created under Joe Biden by printing trillions of dollars and lighting it on fire. And now they're just pinning it on Trump because he's been in office for about 8-9 months, and he didn't have the magic wand to just take us back to 2019 prices through deflation. Democrats selling a remedy for a cost of living disease that they gave us. That's the Aftyn Behn story, and their remedy, of course, will only make us sicker.
And yes, while it is great news for the Republicans who retain a majority in the House, it is not as great as many conservative talking heads are making it sound. Epps' 9 percentage point win is far less than his predecessor, who won by nearly 20 points, and far less than President Trump's 22-point win in that same district last November. So, yes, it is great news, but still something to be concerned about, and you'll be hearing plenty about it throughout the day. In other news from the U.S. House, and this is also good news, Florida Representative Paulina Luna filed a discharge petition to circumvent Speaker Mike Johnson and force a vote to ban congressional stock trading. This is from a video she posted on her X account.
This system up here is so rigged against the American people. It's not even funny. You literally have members of Congress on both sides, Democrats and Republicans. We need to fix health care. Giving perspective on foreign policy. Meanwhile, they are literally bought out by pharmaceutical industry. Their personal stock portfolios are benefiting massively from it, from the government help that they get. They are personally benefiting from if we do get involved in any foreign conflict because the defense contractor stocks skyrocket, especially once we send through the defense appropriations. I mean, this entire process is so rigged against the American people, and we're trying to bring a bill to the floor to do the very basic ending government corruption by banning members of Congress from being able to individually stock trade because they're getting on average 600% returns, which doesn't happen unless you're literally insider trading, trying to keep the amendment process closed so the American people don't know what's happening, trying to send out some watered down BS version when we have a bipartisan bill that's ready to go because they don't want to actually resolve the issue. They want to continue the corruption, which is betting against the American people.
So there you go. We'll be looking out for that. And on Wall Street, the stock markets are in the red this morning after bouncing back a bit yesterday. There was some disappointing news from Microsoft this morning concerning software sales related to AI. Anything with AI is going to move the market in one direction or other. And payroll provider ADP reported a decline in November payrolls, and that report is typically a precursor to the monthly jobs report, you know, the big non-farm payroll report, which should be out this Friday, being the first Friday of the month. But I'm not sure if things are still all messed up, you know, from the 43-day government shutdown. But it'll be all eyes on the White House for the president's announcement this afternoon, and all eyes or ears on Capitol Hill as they just continue to talk about stuff. Be sure to keep up with all of it and breaking developments throughout the day on Newsmax, N2, and at newsmax.com. The news starts each and every morning on Wake Up America Early Edition with Alex Kramer, followed by Wake Up America, National Report, Newsline at noon with Bianca, American Agenda, straight through Rob Schmitt tonight at 7, Finnerty at 8, Greg Kelly Reports, The Right Squad, and much, much more. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening, and I'll thank you in advance for sharing the podcast. If you're relatively new, make sure you subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. I would appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.